They ripped my dress open in front of 200 people, exposing my pregnant body while cameras flashed and the elite laughed. My mother-in-law stood there smiling, convinced she'd finally broken the poor girl who trapped her son. But she had no idea who my father was. And when I whispered those two words into that borrowed phone, "Dad, help," Edward Clark walked through those mansion doors with a power that turned their entire world to ash. Stay until the very end, because what my father did to the Haynes family that night didn't just destroy them. It erased them. And trust me, you need to hear every second of how it happened. If you are ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe button, like this video, and comment where you're watching from. Now let me take you back to where this nightmare truly began. My name is Dorothy Clark, and this is the story of how I learned that silence can be the cruelest weapon, and that sometimes the people who vow to love you are the ones who stand by while you're torn apart. And sometimes revenge comes not from your own hands, but from someone who's been watching, waiting, and preparing to burn down empires. I was just a quiet girl who wanted a simple, honest life when I met Jeremy Haynes. We were both at university studying business. He was confident, attentive, made me feel seen in ways I'd never experienced before. I fell for him completely. Within 18 months, we were married in an intimate ceremony. It felt like a fairy tale. Or so I believed. Jeremy came from old money. The Haynes family wasn't just wealthy, they were legacy, the kind of family whose name opened doors before they even knocked. But I didn't care about any of that. I loved Jeremy for the man I thought he was, not the empire behind him. What his family didn't know, what Jeremy himself didn't know, was that I came from money too. Real money. The kind that makes the Haynes fortune look like loose change forgotten in a coat pocket. My father, Edward Clark, is a self-made billionaire who built a $40 billion empire from absolutely nothing. I grew up surrounded by private islands, security details, and boardrooms where nations' fates were decided. But I watched how people approached my father, how they calculated their worth in his presence, how every smile came with an invoice attached, every friendship had a hidden agenda. I saw how love became transaction, how relationships were investments people hoped would pay dividends. So when I turned 21, I made a choice. I took my mother's maiden name, moved to a different city, and lived modestly in a small apartment. I worked part-time jobs. I wore affordable clothes. I wanted to find love that was real, love that had nothing to do with quarterly earnings or stock portfolios. My father understood. He's always respected my independence, even when my choices terrified him. But he made me promise him one thing, and his voice was steel when he said it. If you ever truly need me, if anyone ever hurts you, you call. Immediately. I promised. And for nearly 2 years, I kept that promise locked away in my heart, determined to build my marriage on my own terms, to prove I could create happiness without my father's shadow or his power. The Haynes family made that impossible from the very first day I walked through their mansion doors. Jeremy's mother, Cassandra, looked at me like I was something rotting she discovered on her Persian rug. She never missed a chance to remind me I didn't belong, that I wasn't worthy of breathing the same air as her precious son. She'd make me pour tea for her society friends, introduce me as the girl Jeremy married, never bothering with my name. She'd critique everything, my posture, my diction, the way I held a fork. Nothing I did could ever meet her standards. Jeremy's father, Richard, simply acted as though I didn't exist. I could walk into a room, and he'd look straight through me like I was a ghost. Sometimes I wondered if that hurt more than Cassandra's act of cruelty. At least she acknowledged I was alive, even if only to tear me down. And then there was Helen, Jeremy's aunt, and Jones, his cousin. Helen was obsessed with bloodlines and breeding, constantly making comments about proper families and unfortunate matches. Jones was smugly vicious, always finding small ways to humiliate me, making jokes about Jeremy, marrying down loud enough for everyone to hear. The constant message was crystal clear. I was lucky they tolerated me at all, and I should spend every moment grateful they hadn't thrown me out. But I tried. God, I tried so hard to make them see me. I thought if I was patient enough, gracious enough, eventually they'd recognize who I really was inside. I thought love would be enough. Jeremy would tell me not to worry, that his family would warm up eventually, but he never once stood up for me. Not once. He'd just tell me to try harder, to understand this was just how they are, to stop being so sensitive. 2 years crawled by like this. 2 years of swallowing my dignity, of accepting disrespect as normal, of pretending the constant cuts didn't bleed. And then came the night that changed everything. Cassandra announced she was throwing a celebration at the mansion, a high society gala with over 200 guests. The city's elite, business moguls, politicians, everyone who mattered. She claimed it was to celebrate family, but I knew the truth. It was a stage, and I was about to become the performance. I had no idea just how right I was. I had no idea that Cassandra, Helen, and Jones had been planning something far darker than insults. And I had no idea that on that night, covered in tears with my pregnant belly exposed to hundreds of cameras, I would finally make the call that would destroy the Haynes family completely. The Haynes mansion wasn't a home. It was a battlefield where I lost ground every single day. Cassandra ruled with cold precision. She had rules for everything: when to eat, which rooms I could enter, even how to hold a teacup. Every mistake was noted with that same icy disappointment. "Dorothy, the blue room is for morning guests only. Surely you know that." I didn't, because she'd never told me. The real humiliation came during her weekly teas. She'd summon me downstairs where her society friends gathered, women dripping in diamonds and judgment. "Dorothy, be a dear and pour for us. The staff is busy." So I'd stand there, hands shaking, pouring tea from antique pots worth more than cars while they talked around me like I was furniture. "Will you attend the Vanderbilt Gala, Dorothy?" Before I could answer, Cassandra would laugh. I think that might be overwhelming for her. She's not accustomed to that level of society. Her friends would nod knowingly, their eyes saying what their mouths didn't. "You don't belong here." Helen made it worse. Jeremy's aunt was obsessed with bloodlines, talking about proper families and breeding like we were livestock. "Can you trace your lineage, Dorothy?" she asked once, her eyes sharp. "I've never looked into it." "No, I suppose you wouldn't. These things matter, though, especially when children are involved. We must consider what influences might dilute the Haynes blood." She was calling my unborn children inferior, and no one stopped her. Then there was Jones, Jeremy's cousin, who treated cruelty like a sport. "There's my favorite charity case," he'd announce whenever he saw me. "Must be nice, marrying up like that." "Jeremy and I love each other," I'd say quietly. "Oh, I'm sure you love him very much." The way he said it made love sound like prostitution. But the worst part? Jeremy's silence. Every insult, every humiliation, every moment I begged him to defend me, he'd just say, "Don't take it personally. Try harder to fit in. Try harder." As if I wasn't already breaking. Then I got pregnant, and for one foolish moment, I thought things would change. A Haynes heir, surely that would earn me acceptance. Instead, it gave them new ammunition. "Should you be eating that, Dorothy? You're showing quite substantially. Most pregnant women glow. You just look puffy. Be careful about weight gain, dear. Jeremy is still so young and handsome." The message was clear. I was becoming undesirable, and Jeremy might look elsewhere. The vase incident shattered more than porcelain. I heard a crash from the sitting room. When I arrived, Jones stood among shards of blue and white china, his face calculated. "Dorothy, I just saw you knock over that vase."
What?
I just got here. You were stumbling, bumped the table. I tried to catch it. Cassandra appeared, her face white. That was Ming Dynasty. Priceless. I didn't touch it. Jones is lying. Jones would never, Cassandra said coldly. Helen materialized, supporting Jones's story. The lie grew with each telling. Jeremy arrived last. I looked at him desperately. Jeremy, please. I wasn't even in the room. He looked at his family. Then at me. Accidents happen, Dorothy. Just be more careful. He believed them. Or worse, he didn't care. That night, lying alone while Jeremy slept, I finally understood. They weren't trying to make me fit in. They were trying to destroy me. And something told me the vase was just the beginning. 3,000 miles away, in a corner office overlooking Manhattan, Edward Clark watched footage that made his blood run cold. He'd known something was wrong for months. A father always knows. It started during Dorothy's last visit home, 6 weeks after the wedding. She'd worn long sleeves despite the summer heat, and when she'd reached for her water glass, the fabric had slipped. Purple fingerprints circled her wrist. Dorothy. His voice had been carefully calm. What happened to your arm?
Oh.
She'd pulled the sleeve down quickly, laughing it off. I'm just clumsy. Bumped into a door. Doors don't leave handprints. But she'd insisted everything was fine, that she was happy, that Jeremy's family was adjusting. The brightness in her voice had been forced, brittle. He'd recognized it immediately. The same false cheer he'd heard from business partners about to lose everything, trying to convince themselves the ship wasn't sinking. He'd let her leave, respected her independence, just as he'd promised. But he'd also made a phone call. Marcus, I need surveillance on the Haynes mansion. Comprehensive. I want to know everything happening under that roof. His head of security hadn't questioned it. Done. The reports came weekly. Verbal abuse. Public humiliation. Isolation tactics. His daughter was being systematically broken down, and her husband was letting it happen. Edward had built an empire by knowing when to strike and when to wait. Every instinct screamed to extract Dorothy immediately, to rain hellfire on the Haynes family that very day. But she'd chosen this life. She'd wanted independence, authentic love, a chance to build something without his shadow. He would respect that choice. Until he couldn't. The turning point came when Marcus presented a proposal. The Haynes Mansion's security system is outdated. We could offer an upgrade, state-of-the-art, complimentary. They'd never refuse. Edward had smiled coldly. Make it happen. 2 weeks later, technicians installed cameras and audio systems throughout the mansion. Invisible. Comprehensive. The Haynes family thought they were getting top-tier security. They were. Just not for their protection. Now Edward watched everything. And what he saw made him want to burn their world to ash. Cassandra, in her private study, speaking to Helen. She's pregnant now. We need to be more careful, but we can't let her think she's actually part of this family. The child is a Haynes. She's just the incubator. Helen's response. I've been documenting everything, her clothes, her manners, her background. When the time comes, we'll have proof she's unfit. We can take the child and remove her entirely. Jones, laughing with friends over brandy. Jeremy's little charity project is falling apart. Give it another year, we'll break her completely. She'll leave on her own, and Jeremy can marry someone actually worthy of the family name. Edward had watched his daughter serve tea like a servant. Watched her cry alone in her room. Watched Jeremy walk past her tears without a word. He'd seen enough. Marcus, start acquiring Haynes assets. Everything. I want it done quietly, through shell corporations. Mortgages, business shares, property deeds. I want to own them without them knowing they're already mine. All of it, sir?
Every
single thing. His assistant, Sarah, had entered with contracts that afternoon. She'd worked for Edward for 15 years, knew him better than most. She saw the footage on his screen, Dorothy, visibly pregnant now, being mocked by Jones. "Sir, perhaps we should intervene now." "Not yet." Edward's voice was steel wrapped in ice. "They're planning something bigger. I can feel it. And when they make their move—" He looked at Sarah, his eyes darker than she'd ever seen them. "If they touch her again, if they hurt my daughter one more time, I don't just take their money, Sarah." "Sir?" Edward turned back to the screens, watching Dorothy fade a little more each day. "I take everything. Their businesses, their properties, their reputation, their future. I will erase the Haynes family from existence, and I will make sure they watch every second of their destruction." Sarah nodded, understanding completely. "Prepare the legal teams. And keep the cameras running. I want documentation of everything. And if Dorothy calls?" Edward's expression softened for just a moment, the ruthless billionaire replaced by a father who'd do anything to protect his child. "If she calls, we move immediately. Full force. No merci." He looked at the screen again, watching Dorothy touch her growing belly, alone in a mansion full of people who hated her. They have no idea what's coming. The ballroom looked like something from a fairy tale, the kind where the princess doesn't get her happy ending. Crystal chandeliers cascaded from the vaulted ceiling, casting golden light across silk drapery that puddled on marble floors. An orchestra played softly in the corner, their music barely audible above the murmur of 200 elite guests. Women glided past in gowns that cost more than cars, dripping in diamonds and designer labels. Men in custom tuxedos clustered near the bar, discussing mergers and stock portfolios like other people discuss the weather. It was breathtaking, intimidating, suffocating, and I was about to become the evening's entertainment. I didn't know that yet, of course. Standing in my bedroom 3 hours earlier, I'd actually felt a flutter of hope as I smoothed down my simple white maternity gown. Maybe tonight would be different. Maybe with all these witnesses, Cassandra would finally treat me with basic dignity. I should have known better. What I didn't see, Cassandra, Helen, and Jones huddled in Cassandra's private study that afternoon, their voices low and urgent. "The brooch is in the safe," Cassandra said, removing a velvet box. Inside, a priceless diamond and sapphire brooch glittered, a Haynes family heirloom worth over $2 million. "I'll wear it during the reception, then claim it's missing." Helen smiled coldly. "And I've already placed the empty box in Dorothy's dressing room, hidden behind her shoes. When they search, they'll find the evidence." "Perfect." Jones leaned back, smugly satisfied. "With 200 witnesses and phone cameras everywhere, she'll be ruined. Even her father's money won't save her reputation after this." "This ends tonight," Cassandra declared. "She leaves Jeremy, or we destroy her completely. Either way, she's gone." They'd planned everything, every detail, every contingency, and I'd walked right into their trap, wearing a white gown. By the time I entered the ballroom, I already felt like an imposter. My dress, elegant by normal standards, looked painfully simple next to the haute couture surrounding me. My modest jewelry seemed childish compared to the fortunes glittering on other women's necks. And my pregnant belly, obvious beneath the empire waist, drew stares ranging from pity to disgust. I searched for Jeremy in the crowd, found him near the bar with his father, deep in conversation with men in expensive suits. I started toward him. He saw me, made brief eye contact, then deliberately turned his back. The message was clear. Tonight, I was on my own. Cassandra appeared, resplendent in a crimson gown with a sapphire brooch prominently displayed at her throat. "Dorothy, you came." Her smile was razor-sharp. "How quaint you look. Thank you for hosting this. I managed. Yes, well, we do try to maintain certain standards, even when it's challenging. Her eyes swept over my dress, my belly, lingering on every perceived flaw. Do try not to embarrass Jeremy too badly this evening. She glided away, leaving me standing alone as guests flowed around me like I was a stone in their river. I caught fragments of whispers. That's her? The one Jeremy married? She looks so ordinary. I heard she came from nothing. Practically tricked him. Poor Jeremy. Trapped with that. Near the windows, Helen held court with a circle of elegantly dressed women. Her voice carried clearly. Some people pretend to be what they're not. She glanced meaningfully in my direction. But breeding always shows. Or rather, the lack of it. Her companions tittered, their eyes finding me, assessing, judging, dismissing. I felt my face burn. My hands instinctively went to my belly, seeking comfort from the child who couldn't defend me any more than I could defend myself. The trap was set. The audience assembled. The players in position. I just didn't know the performance was about to begin. But as I stood there, alone in a ballroom full of people who despised me, a cold certainty settled in my chest. Something terrible was about to happen. And this time there would be no pretending everything was fine. It happened during dinner. The orchestra had just finished a waltz. Servers were clearing the main course. Conversation hummed pleasantly across the ballroom. I'd actually started to relax, thinking maybe I could survive this night after all. Then Cassandra's hand flew to her throat. My brooch. Her voice cut through the music like shattering glass. My brooch is gone. The ballroom fell silent. 200 conversations died mid-sentence. What? Helen rushed to her side, her performance perfectly calibrated. The sapphire brooch? Cassandra, that's been in your family for generations. It was right here. Cassandra's voice rose, trembling with manufactured panic. Someone has stolen it. Every head turned. Every eye searched. And I felt my stomach drop because I knew, God, I knew where those eyes would eventually land. Ladies and gentlemen, please. Cassandra raised her hands, commanding attention like the queen she believed herself to be. I hate to disrupt this beautiful evening, but a priceless family heirloom has been taken. The sapphire brooch is worth over $2 million. It was at my throat less than an hour ago. Phones emerged from purses and pockets. Camera flashes began to pop. This wasn't a private family matter anymore. This was content. Drama. A scandal unfolding in real time. I wanted to disappear. To sink through the marble floor and never resurface. Now, I don't want to accuse anyone hastily. Cassandra's eyes found mine across the room. But Dorothy, dear, you were near my dressing room earlier, weren't you? 200 pairs of eyes swiveled to me. I felt their weight like physical pressure. I was looking for the restroom. I didn't go into your room. I didn't see any brooch. She's lying. Jones stepped forward, his voice carrying clearly. Strong. Confident. Rehearsed. I saw her coming out of Mother's dressing room about an hour ago. She looked nervous. Suspicious. That's not true. My voice shook. I never went inside. Dorothy. Helen's tone was poisonous sympathy. We all know you've been struggling financially. Living in this house, surrounded by wealth you can't access. It must be so tempting. The crowd murmured. Agreement. Judgment. Condemnation. I don't want your brooch. I don't want any of this. Tears burned in my eyes. I searched desperately for Jeremy. Found him standing with his father, his face carefully blank. Jeremy, please. Tell them I wouldn't do this. He looked at me. For one heartbreaking moment, our eyes met. Then he looked away. The crowd tightened around me, a circle of designer gowns and tuxedos forming a cage. Phones held high. recording everything. My humiliation would be immortalized, shared, viral before the night ended. Search her, someone called out. If she's innocent, she has nothing to hide. Yes, Cassandra agreed, moving closer. Search her. Right here. Right now. You can't be serious. My voice was barely a whisper. Please. Please don't do this. But I could see in their faces that mercy wasn't coming. Helen advanced from one side, Cassandra from the other. The circle pressed tighter. Search her dress, Helen commanded. Now. Please, I begged, my hands instinctively covering my belly. Protecting my baby. I didn't take anything. Please believe me. Please. Jones grabbed my arm. His grip was iron. This will only take a moment, Cassandra said sweetly. Unless, of course, you have something to hide. I looked one last time at Jeremy, silently pleading, desperately hoping he'd find his spine, his voice, his love for me. He stood frozen, silent, watching. And then Cassandra's hands were on my dress. Helen's hands closed around the fabric of my gown. Let's see what you're hiding, shall we? No. Please, no. I tried to pull away, but Jones was behind me, his hands gripping my shoulders, holding me in place. Just stay still, he hissed in my ear. You're only making this worse. Helen yanked at the delicate fabric. I heard the first terrible sound, the soft rip of seams giving way. Stop. Please. I'm pregnant. My voice broke into a scream. But they didn't stop. Cassandra grabbed the other side of the dress, her face twisted with theatrical outrage. If you're innocent, you have nothing to fear. They pulled in opposite directions. The dress tore completely. The sound echoed in my ears, fabric shredding, beating scattering across marble like hail, my own screams mixing with the gasps of 200 witnesses. My gown fell open, exposing my swollen belly, my underwear, my body to the entire ballroom. Flashes exploded. Dozens of phones pointed at me, recording every second of my destruction. The camera lights were blinding, disorienting, like spotlights on a stage I never asked to stand on. Oh my God, someone whispered. Are they really? Someone's recording this. Women's hands flew to their mouths in shock. Men turned away, some embarrassed, others unable to look away from the spectacle. The orchestra had stopped playing. The servers stood frozen with trays in hand. And I stood there, trembling, clutching torn fabric to my pregnant body, tears streaming down my face. I looked at Jeremy one final time. He was stepping backward, away from me, away from the scandal, away from his wife. Protecting himself while I fell apart. I didn't take anything. I sobbed, my voice raw. I didn't. But no one was listening anymore. They were too busy recording, whispering, sharing. My humiliation was already going viral in real time. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The ballroom spun around me, a kaleidoscope of judgmental faces and flashing lights. I ran. Or tried to. My legs barely worked. I stumbled through the crowd, people parting around me like I was contagious, clutching my torn dress, my dignity scattered across the marble floor with the beads from my gown. I collapsed against a pillar near the entrance, sliding down until I was sitting on the cold floor, sobbing so hard I thought I might shatter. A hand appeared in my field of vision. An older woman, one of the serving staff, her face lined with compassion. Here. She pressed something into my palm. Take this. A phone. Call someone, she whispered urgently. Call someone who can help you. My hand shook so badly I could barely hold it. Through my tears, I found the contact I'd promised myself I'd never use. The emergency number. The one that meant I'd failed at independence, at marriage, at everything. But I had nothing left. I pressed call. It rang once. Dorothy. My father's voice, sharp with immediate concern. Dad. My voice broke completely. Please help me. Where are you? The Haynes mansion. They ripped my dress. Everyone saw. Everyone recorded it. Dad, they hate me. They've always hated me. And Jeremy, he just watched. Silence. The kind of silence that precedes thunder. When my father spoke again, his voice was colder than I'd ever heard it. Stay exactly where you are. I'm coming. And, Dorothy. Yes, they have no idea what they've just done. The line went dead. I sat there, clutching torn fabric and a stranger's phone, waiting in the wreckage of my life. Outside, through the massive windows, I saw them. Black SUVs. A convoy of them, turning through the mansion gates like a military operation. My father had arrived, and the Haynes family's world was about to end. The SUVs didn't just arrive. They descended. 8 black vehicles screamed through the gates in perfect formation, tires screeching as they surrounded the mansion's entrance. Guests near the windows gasped, pressing closer to see. What on earth? Is that security? Someone call the police. But the police were already here. 3 patrol cars pulled in behind the SUVs, lights flashing. Then came the helicopters. 2 of them, spotlights slicing through the night sky, circling the mansion like predators. The thunder of their rotors shook the crystal chandeliers. News vans appeared next, cameras already rolling, reporters scrambling for position. Somehow, they'd been tipped off. Somehow, they knew exactly where to be. My father had planned this down to the second. The ballroom erupted into chaos. Guests rushed to the windows. Phones came out, not to record me anymore, but to capture whatever was happening outside. And then the doors burst open. Bodyguards entered first. 12 of them, massive men in black suits with earpieces, forming a perimeter. They moved with military precision, cutting through the crowd like it didn't exist. Then came my father. Edward Clark walked into that ballroom like he owned it, because within minutes, everyone would know he actually did. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than the average car, his silver hair perfectly styled, his expression carved from ice. But his eyes burned with a fury that made grown men step backward. He saw me immediately, crumpled against the pillar, clutching torn fabric, my pregnant belly exposed, mascara streaking down my face. Something terrible crossed his face. Rage beyond words. He strode directly to me, removing his jacket as he walked. Within seconds, he was kneeling beside me, wrapping the jacket around my shoulders, covering me, protecting me. "I'm here," he whispered. "It's over now." Then he stood, turning to face the ballroom. His voice, when he spoke, could have shattered glass. "Who dared touch my daughter?" The room went silent. Utterly, completely silent. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Oh my God, is that Edward Clark? The Edward Clark? The billionaire?" Cassandra's face had gone white. Helen looked like she might faint. Jones had disappeared into the crowd. Jeremy stood frozen, finally understanding. I asked a question. My father's voice was quieter now, which made it infinitely more terrifying.
"Who touched my
daughter?" "Mr. Clark." Cassandra recovered first, her voice trembling. "There's been a terrible misunderstanding. Your daughter was accused of theft." Accused. My father smiled, and it was the most dangerous thing I'd ever seen. Interesting word. Marcus. One of his security team stepped forward, holding a tablet. He tapped the screen. The ballroom's projection screens, installed for the party's photo montage, suddenly flickered to life. Security footage. Crystal clear. Time-stamped. The first video showed Jones in Cassandra's dressing room 3 hours earlier, carefully removing the brooch from its case and pocketing it. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The second showed Helen placing the empty brooch box in my bedroom, hiding it behind my shoes, her face calculating.
No, Ellen whispered.
That's not. The third video was Cassandra, Helen, and Jones in the study that afternoon. The audio played clearly. We destroy her completely tonight. Rip her dress if you must. I want her humiliated beyond recovery. Cassandra's voice. Her words. Undeniable. She collapsed into a chair, her face ashen. My father gestured. 2 police officers stepped forward. Cassandra Haynes, Helen Haynes, Jones Haynes, you're under arrest for conspiracy, theft, assault, and fraud. You can't, Jones tried to speak. I can, and I am. My father's eyes were merciless. You wanted to destroy my daughter. You have no idea what you've unleashed. Jeremy finally found his voice. Sir, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know they planned this. My father turned to him, and Jeremy actually flinched. You watched. My father's voice was barely above a whisper. Your wife, your pregnant wife, was stripped in front of 200 people and you watched. I didn't know what to. You stepped backward. While they tore her apart, you protected yourself. Jeremy had no response. What could he possibly say? My father wrapped his arm around me. This is just the beginning. By morning, none of you will have anything left. And I believed him. My father wasn't finished. He pulled out his phone, pressed a single button. His voice echoed through the ballroom's sound system. Sarah, execute. Executed, sir, came the reply over speaker. Edward turned to face the crowd, his arms still protectively around me. I want everyone here to understand something. For the past 6 months, I've been watching,
Documenting.
and preparing. He looked directly at Cassandra. You thought you were untouchable. Old money, established name, powerful connections. He smiled, and it was terrifying. You were living on borrowed time.
My time.
My money. Richard Haynes pushed through the crowd, his face purple with rage. What the hell are you talking about? I'm talking about ownership, Richard. Let me clarify your situation. My father pulled out a tablet, began reading like he was reviewing a shopping list. As of 3 minutes ago, I own 71% of Haynes Enterprises. Controlling interest. Your board is voting you out tomorrow morning. Richard's face went slack. The mortgage on this mansion?
Mine.
Has been for 4 months. You've been living in my house. Cassandra made a choking sound. Cassandra, those trust funds you've been living off? Frozen. My lawyers filed injunctions an hour ago based on the criminal charges. You won't access $1. You can't. Jones, that development company you're so proud of? I own the land underneath it. Past tense. I just terminated your lease. Your business closes at midnight. Jones had gone completely white. Helen, your country club membership, your art collection insurance, your line of credit. All through institutions I control. All revoked as of now. My father's voice never rose. Never wavered. Each word landed like a surgical strike. The cars in your garage? Leased through my subsidiary. Being repossessed tonight. Your vacation properties? Built on land I purchased through shell companies. That land is no longer available to you. He looked around the ballroom at 200 shocked faces. The Haynes fortune, what's left of it, will be seized to cover legal fees, restitution, and damages. By morning, your family name will be synonymous with fraud, cruelty, and criminal conspiracy. Richard lunged forward. Security stopped him instantly. You're destroying us over a dress?
No.
My father's voice went deadly quiet. I'm destroying you because you hurt my daughter. The dress was just when I decided to stop waiting. Jeremy suddenly dropped to his knees in front of me, his face desperate. Dorothy, please. I love you. I didn't know. We can fix this. Stand up, my father said coldly. Jeremy ignored him, grabbing my hands.
Please. I'm sorry.
I should have defended you. I'll do better. Please don't leave. I looked at him, really looked at him. This man I'd loved, who'd promised to protect me, who'd watched me be destroyed and done nothing. My father's lawyer appeared at my elbow, holding papers. Mrs. Haynes, these are divorce papers. Pre-drafted, expedited processing. You can sign now if you wish. I took the pen. Jeremy's eyes widened. Dorothy, no. I signed my name. Then I looked at my husband, my soon-to-be ex-husband, and said the only words he deserved. You didn't stay silent because you were shocked. You stayed silent because it was me. Because I wasn't worth defending. That's not. It is. I handed the papers back to the lawyer. And now you get to live with that. My father guided me toward the door. Behind us, reporters were flooding into the ballroom. Cameras flashing, questions shouting. Mr. Haynes, is it true you've lost your company? Mrs. Haynes, did you really frame your daughter-in-law? Jones Haynes, how does it feel to be arrested at your own family's party? The Haynes family was being devoured by the same society they'd lorded over for generations. And I didn't look back. My father led me outside to a waiting SUV. As we drove away, I saw news vans surrounding the mansion, helicopters overhead. The whole scene lit up like a disaster movie. It's really over? I whispered. It's over, my father confirmed. They'll never hurt you again. For the first time in 2 years, I believed I was safe. 6 months later, I stood in the executive boardroom of Clark Holdings, my daughter sleeping peacefully in a bassinet beside my desk. The quarterly reports show a 12% increase. I told the board, my voice steady and confident. I recommend we expand into the Asian markets next quarter. My father, seated at the head of the table, smiled with pride. Motion approved. Excellent work, Dorothy. Vice President Dorothy Clark. It had a nice ring to it. My daughter, Emma, stirred slightly. I glänste her. Perfect, Heluhi, mine. She'd been born 7 weeks after that terrible night, delivered safely with my father holding my hand through every contraction. Jeremy had tried to visit the hospital. Security had escorted him out. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks later. I kept nothing from the Haynes family except my freedom. That was worth more than all their money combined. One more thing. I addressed the board. I'm launching a foundation for women escaping abusive relationships. Full funding, legal support, housing assistance, therapy. Everything they need to rebuild. Because I'd had my father's empire to catch me. Most women had nothing. The foundation gala was tonight. Our first major fundraiser, and I'd personally overseen every detail. As I walked through the venue doing final checks, I almost didn't recognize her. Cassandra Haynes stood near the catering station, wearing a server's uniform, her once perfect hair pulled into a simple ponytail. The criminal charges had been reduced to misdemeanors with restitution, but her reputation was destroyed. Her world was gone. She looked up, saw me, and went completely still. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then she set down her tray and walked over, her eyes brimming with tears. Dorothy. Her voice cracked. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know.
I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry.
What I did to you was unforgivable. I was cruel and vicious and She broke down completely, tears streaming down her face. I destroyed my own family because I couldn't see past my own ego. I looked at this woman who'd made my life hell, who'd torn my dress and exposed me to the world, who'd schemed to break me. And I realized something. Holding on to hatred was just another prison. I forgive you, I said quietly. She looked up, shocked. What? I forgive you. Not because you've earned it.
Not even really for you.
I touched my daughter's tiny hand. but because I refuse to carry your poison into my new life. I'm free now, Cassandra. And forgiveness is the last lock on that door. She sobbed harder, overwhelmed. I walked away, leaving her to process it however she needed to. That night, standing at the podium with Emma in my arms, I addressed 300 donors and survivors. I learned something important over the past 2 years, I said, my voice carrying clearly. Real strength isn't inherited. It's not something you're born with or given by your family name. It's built one painful moment at a time. Every time you choose to stand up after being knocked down. Every time you refuse to let cruelty make you cruel. Every time you survive what was meant to destroy you. I looked out at the crowd, survivors, allies, supporters. We're all stronger than we know. And we're strongest when we stand together. The applause was thunderous. After the gala, I stood outside under the stars, Emma sleeping against my chest. My father joined me, putting his arm around my shoulders. Proud of you, Dorothy. Thank you. For everything. For coming when I called. Always. He kissed the top of my head. Where to now? I looked at the city lights stretching before me, full of possibility and promise. Forward, I said simply. Always forward. And for the first time in my life, I knew exactly who I was. Not Jeremy's wife. Not a victim. Not someone defined by what had been done to her. Just Dorothy Clark. Mother. Executive. Survivor.
Fighter. Free.
If you enjoyed this story, click subscribe button, like this video, and comment below what lesson you learned from today's story. Your thoughts might be featured in the next video.